I won't go too in-depth on those two programs because we did have just recently our Doing Business with the City 101 seminar that covered a lot of that. And so if you have any more questions on those programs, please feel free to email me or reach out. We can go a little bit further into those programs. So what we're here to talk about today, this is the second iteration of our Spring Learning series. And this one is on insurance and bid bonding on city projects. And so hopefully if you're joining us, you're one of our trusted registered vendors already. If you're not registered to do business with the City of Frederick already, please, again, reach out. We can help you through that process. But if you're here or joining us virtually, I assume it's because you are looking to do business on a project or gain a contract with the City of Frederick, and you have some questions or are interested in how we handle our insurance requirements and our bid bonding requirements on those projects. And so since I have no idea, I shouldn't say no idea, but since I am not the expert on those two subjects, I have invited the experts here to give you that information today. And so first and foremost, I'd like to welcome from our Risk, Safety, and Compliance Department, Miss Andrea Brightful. So if you guys want to give her a round of applause.
Hi guys, my name is Andrea Brightful. I'm the manager of Risk, Safety, and Compliance for the City of Frederick. I've been with the City of Frederick in my current department for about 5 years, about 2.5 years in my current role. We do have a very small department of 4. We handle risk, safety, and compliance for the City of Frederick. So what that means is employee training, safety, and compliance for local, state, and federal guidelines and regulations. I have about 13 years of insurance and risk management experience, and our small department of 4 has over 42 years of experience. So we've seen a lot. We support about 1,100 employees with our seasonal and part-time employees annually and 86,000 residents. We handle everything that you can imagine that goes through the City of Frederick. So I always say we have A to Z, except we don't have a zoo. Sometimes I feel like I live in one, but we have an airport, we have a police department, water treatment, wastewater treatment plants. What we're here to talk about today is the insurance requirements and what is expected of a business when you're registering and doing business with the City of Frederick. So insurance can be, oh, Gerard, how do I switch it? Sorry. Just kidding. So insurance can be very dry, so I'll make it as fun as we possibly can and give you the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about. Back in the day, a simple handshake and somebody's word meant a lot, right? Now, not so much. So if you're going to be doing business with large businesses or other government entities, you should be prepared to have a contract in place. You should also be prepared to have proper insurance. So it's pretty standard that you'll have to require or provide a certificate of insurance to do business with any larger businesses or government municipalities, just to prove that you have the insurance that's necessary. A lot of today's presentation is going to be on certificates of insurance because that is the #1 question that I get in my department. What is it? Why do I have to have it? Why do you need it? And how important is it, right? So we will go over a little bit of what our requirements are, but more importantly, we're going to go over the certificate of insurance. So does everybody know what a certificate of insurance is? Yes, okay. So a certificate of insurance in a short version is documentation that's issued by your insurance carrier or broker or insurance agent that tells us the named insured, which would be the policy holder, probably you, the business that you're using, your policy numbers, and then policy periods, so the duration that your policy is effective, coverage and limits that you have for your insurance and for your business, and then who would be listed as an additional insured. So for additional insureds, we do ask that we're listed as an additional insured in many, if not all of our contracts. That's really just to give us access to the policy and for our risk management department to be able to talk to your insurance carriers or agent in the event that something happens as far as coverage is concerned, making sure that the policy is in force and making sure that we have access if necessary if a claim happens. Who Who needs to submit a certificate of insurance? So vendors, contractors, third-party service providers, event coordinators, filmmakers, performers, speakers. Pretty much if you have a contract with the City of Frederick, or if we're exchanging money to you, or you're exchanging money back to us, we want to make sure that you have proper insurance in place. So how many of you are City of Frederick residents? Anybody? Okay, good. So we have a lot of residents. So when I say City of Frederick and protecting the City of Frederick, what I mean is protecting you as a taxpayer. So our goal is to make sure that we're protecting the taxpayers from unnecessary risks and unnecessary expenditures, not necessarily the city as a whole, but more so the taxpayers and the people that are paying into that. Why does the City of Frederick need a certificate of insurance? Can anybody tell me why you think we might need a certificate of insurance? Yep.
For protection, so you just don't have anyone just coming in to do work that isn't capable of doing the work properly, and that it just limits the risk.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect answer. So there's three main components, as you mentioned: risk management, compliance, and proof of insurance. So we want to reduce the liability to the City of Frederick and our taxpayers. We also want to minimize any of penalties, or avoid any penalties that we would receive in breaches of contract. That's also to protect you as well. Many entities and industries would say that it would be a compliance requirement for us to have certificates of insurance, and proof of insurance gives us tangible evidence to tell us your policy coverages, the limits that you have, the duration of the policy, and who the policy is for. The most important and shortest answer I can provide to you is that our insurance carriers require it. So we also have to make sure that we're abiding by our policy contracts and making sure that we're getting certificates of insurance. The coverage limits that we're going to go over today are our requirements to do business with the City of Frederick. There are some variations of that depending on what you're going to be doing with the City of Frederick, but for the most part, the limits are a standard business policy that is issued for anybody requesting insurance. So there's a handout over here. If you don't already have it, you might want to grab one. So this is an example of a certificate of insurance, and it has our actual requirements on the certificate of insurance. As I previously mentioned, we don't need a copy of your insurance policy. Really what we want is that you have proof of what you say you have, and that you have the coverages that are necessary to do business with the City of Frederick. Our limits are the standard limits for a business policy. So $1 million per claim, $2 million aggregate for general liability and auto policies, workers' compensation. Most general liability policies will include fire protection, advertisement, and medical coverages. So most of them, you're already going to see that included in the policy. These are not limits that we suggest you have necessarily. I recommend that you reach out to your insurance agent and broker to talk about what is specific for your business and to protect you as a business owner. This is just what the requirements are for the City of Frederick. There are some exceptions, although the exceptions should be rare. The most common exception that we see is for workers' compensation. Are there any businesses in here that have businesses outside of Maryland? Is everybody Maryland? You, okay. So there's also a workaround in some of those situations for workers' compensation specifically. So the state of Maryland does have an exemption form that if you don't have workers' compensation for your business, then we would be able to do an exemption form in lieu of having workers' compensation. For businesses outside of the state of Maryland, there's a different process. I would encourage you to review your limits if you're thinking about doing insurance with the city, or doing business with the City of Frederick, or providing a service with the City of Frederick, and then review your limits and reach out to us to talk about what your services are that you provide and what your limits are if they don't meet our standard requirements. I would recommend that you do that sooner rather than later. Opening the conversation early before you even bid or apply is suggested, so that way we can work out some of the details and talk to you about what might be necessary for you. Doing business for a city our size, could be anything from selling snow cones at an event to digging and rigging and trenching. So as you can imagine, the insurance requirements might be a little bit different for those things. So don't let it discourage you if you don't have the limits that are listed on our policy. We'll talk to you about that and help you to get where you need to be. I work very closely with our procurement department, who you'll hear from soon, and we do everything that we can to make sure that you're having the same opportunities as some of the larger businesses and some of the businesses that we've done business with before. One of the other things that you'll see on there is listing us as an additional insured. So we do require in most contracts that we're listed as an additional insured. This doesn't alter your policy. It's simply done. It's generally free. So usually you can contact your broker or agent and let them know that we're requesting to be listed as an additional insured. And really that's just so that they can give us notifications if there's cancellations of your policy and give us rights to ask questions regarding your policy and point people in the right directions if an incident should occur. So that's one of the biggest questions that we have, is adding us as an additional insured. It's not as scary as it sounds. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about are sample examples of when certificates of insurance would be needed, or when we've had to use certificates of insurance, I'm sorry. So most people think with insurance, it's not going to happen to me. Well, I can tell you it does. So being in this industry for a very long time, we've seen a lot of things. We average about 400 claims per year. So if you think 365 days a year, 24/7, it's at least a claim a day. So we've probably seen it or heard it or been somewhere close to something that you're going to experience. The main important thing is if you're doing business with the City of Frederick and you do have a claim, don't be scared to contact us. Please reach out to us. It's important that we open those lines of communication immediately to let each other know that something is going on. We'll have the same respect for you and make sure that if we receive notification that something's going on with your services, that we notify you immediately so that you can mitigate whatever's going on to protect your business and ultimately to protect us as well and the taxpayers. So a couple of examples that seem pretty minor, but some claims that we've had with other contractors. We had a business that was doing electrical work on a building, and they had a scissor lift where they put the scissor lift on top of a storm drain, and the storm drain was not rated for the weight of the scissor lift. So as you can imagine, storm drain collapse. There's now damage to our property as well as a resident's property where there's a sidewalk damage. So that's something that we had to go back to the contractor, let them know, and then we had to go out, immediately to mitigate our property damage and then put the resident in contact with the right person as to who was doing the work. A contractor once, this is a very simple mistake that probably anybody in this room can relate to. It sounds very silly, but it happens. Contractor thinks that their vehicle's in drive, hits the gas, it's in reverse, takes out an entire porch and steps. So not a good situation, but it happens. We've all probably had somebody in our family or neighbor, relative that's done something similar. Very easy mistake, especially when you're distracted. Another one, we had a contractor that was doing street repairs. They didn't put coal mix around the manhole covers in the roadway, and so there was no ramping to go up over top of the manholes and down from the manholes. We received a bunch of complaints at the city, our risk department, that people's tires were getting slashed as they went through because there was nothing protecting the tire from the metal covering. And we reached out to the contractor immediately, let them know so that they could mitigate, their exposure and go fix the issue, and then we put the people and residents in contact with the people that they need to handle what they need to for the damages to their vehicles. So a common misperception is that if you're doing business with the City of Frederick that you're covered under our insurance policies. I'm sorry, but you're not. Our policies are rated for us and what we do as a municipality. They're not rated for other people's exposures, other people's business and what they're doing, because our insurance policies can't anticipate every single thing or every single project that we're going to have out there. So it's important that you have your own insurance, not only to protect taxpayers, but to protect you and your business. We understand that accidents happen, and we understand that insurance is important, communication is important, so I urge you to reach out to us if something happens and you are doing business. If you have questions, please reach out to us about your personal insurance limits and your personal business's insurance limits. these are our standard requirements. I urge you to reach out to your broker or agent. If you don't have insurance right now, there are plenty of brokers and agents. You can Google. I hate to tell you, but I can't recommend a specific person to go get insurance for you. That's going to be up to you and your business and the type of work you're providing. If you don't have insurance on a regular basis, there's always one-day policies, there's short-term policies. You might pay a little bit different, but an agent or broker can help walk you through that and what that looks like for you. The only issue that we are really concerned with is that you have proper insurance during the duration of the project and services that you're offering to the city of Frederick to protect you and to protect our taxpayers. The bottom line is we aim to be consistent and fair. So we have used feedback over the past 5 years, probably, maybe longer, to create processes and put processes in place that help with the minority women-owned businesses and the small businesses so that you can be in the same position as some of the larger businesses or the people we've done business with before. We're always open to having conversations. I put Katie's phone number and email. Katie's here with me. She's our compliance specialist. She's typically who reviews our certificates of insurance. If it gets a little bit more in depth, then you'll probably talk to me, but we're here to help. If you have questions, I have business cards. Katie has business cards, and the information's also in the presentation and your take-homes. I gave you guys some fact sheets with some frequently asked questions that we get. If you have another question on there, we've probably heard it. Don't be embarrassed to ask. I'd rather you ask and get an answer than to sit and stew on it. So does anybody have insurance questions or questions about the insurance requirements or what we require or why we require it? No? Yeah.
Where can I find a list of exceptions to the insurance requirements? I know you said sometimes there's exceptions. Is there a list where I can access that?
So there's not a, yep, of course. So the question is there a list of where we can access exceptions for insurance? So we don't have a list because every situation is unique and different. I would urge you to contact the Risk Safety Compliance Office either through email or through the phone with the phone number provided so that we can talk about the services that you're going to be providing and the insurance requirements that you have, or I'm sorry, the insurance limits that you have and the requirements that we would require for your business. Anybody else? No? Thank you guys for listening to insurance. It's my favorite thing to talk about, but not everybody else's.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Hopefully you guys learned something today. Just a couple quick public service announcements before we move on. The restroom is located just outside these doors right next to the security desk, so please feel free to make use of that if needed. We also do have donuts and coffee here available, so don't feel like you have to be stuck in your seat. You can get up, move around, grab something to eat at any point. So again, thank you for joining us here. I do want to welcome our next presenter. So insurance is one half of the questions that we get asked a lot on projects and contracts for the city. The other half are bid bonds, right? And so, again, I am not the expert on that subject, and so I have invited the expert on the subject to help us with that. And so please, a warm welcome for Ms. Keisha Brown, the manager of our purchasing department here at the City of Frederick. Your slide up. There we go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending, both in person and virtually. My name is Keisha Brown. I'm the manager of purchasing here with the city. I've been in my current position about 9 years, and with the city a bit longer than that. My section is going to be a bit more brief than Andrea's. Unlike insurance, which all of our vendors and contractors are required to have, bonds are something that are applied to typically higher value contracts. And so while bid bonding is probably the piece of it that you're most interested in, I'm going to give an overview of bonds in general just so that you have an understanding of the full picture of why we ask for what we ask for, essentially, and what to expect if you are awarded a larger contract with the city. So just to start off, I should say that in the purchasing department, we're responsible for acquiring goods, services, and constructions efficiently and effectively. And move on from there. The right arrow? Okay. So a bid bond and all the bonds we're discussing today are more formally known as surety bonds. You may have heard of financial bonds, which are issued to finance projects and things along those lines. But these are surety bonds, and they are essentially contracts that guarantee that specific obligations are fulfilled. And so they can be used in many circumstances. They could be a condition of obtaining licenses or permits. In court, they could guarantee an appearance, different things such as that. For us, they ensure a project is completed as it's agreed upon. So that means on time and on budget. Ultimately, that protects our taxpayers and makes sure we're using our funds appropriately. What these bonds do is they shift the risk of the contractor defaulting from the city to the surety company. And they also can ensure that subcontractors, suppliers, and laborers are paid on time. The surety comes together with the contractor, known as the principal or the person needing the bond, and the obligee, the person requiring the bond, which is the city. And so that three-party agreement comes together to form the bond. Cost is a percentage of the amount of the bond, the value of the bond. It ranges from about 1 to 10%, depending on factors like the credit score of the business, the bond type, the risk level, the industry. And for us, these are typically required in our construction projects. That's where we require all these bonds to be. So we do make an effort because we understand that there are new businesses, smaller businesses that are trying to grow and do more work with the city. We make an effort not to overly apply the requirement, but it is important that we protect the city and the taxpayers. So we're always looking for that balance. For us, the bond requirements are only on our formal procurements and typically on construction, although they could be applied to other things, large contracts like custodial, for example. It's typically clear-cut which ones would require the bonds, but if there's ever any question, it would be a cooperative decision made with risk, legal, and everyone included on the project. So to look at the types of bonds, kind of going through the life cycle of a project, the first one, and the one that's of most interest today, is the bid bond. And that guarantees a contractor will honor their bid and that we will get to an executed contract. Solicitation processes do take time and cost us money and staff time, and it's very important that, especially on these large projects, that the bid process does turn into a contract ultimately. This bid bond also helps ensure that we know the contractor has a relationship with a surety and is bondable in general, and that's going to be important down the line once the contract is awarded. If for some reason the bid would not turn into a contract, it would be withdrawn. We do have the option to call that bond, and the surety would make us whole for the cost of the delays, for resoliciting, and then they would go back to the contractor and work that out on their end. And that's how it works for all the bonds. The surety would make us whole at that point. So if you are awarded a contract, yay, you get to move on to the next step. And typically in the performance of the contract, we ask for two bonds. We ask for a performance bond, which is sometimes called a contract bond, and it essentially guarantees the terms of the contract will be honored, and that it will be completed on time. If not, again, the surety would provide us with the completion of the project, either the funds to do so or they would have the work done by a contractor of their choosing. The second bond would be the payment bond, or the labor and materials bond is kind of the older name for that. And that guarantees that subcontractors and material providers are paid. Again, if not, the surety would pay them. That's where the surety steps in, not necessarily with the city, but they step in and cover with the subcontractors and the material providers. And then if the contract is successfully finished, again, yay, we get to move on to a maintenance bond, sometimes also called a warranty bond. And that guarantees the workmanship of the contractor for a specific period of time after completion. It ensures that any defects or issues are addressed. And again, if the contractor would for some reason fail to do that, we would go back to the surety, who would either assist us in enforcing our contract, or in select circumstances, they would do the work for us on behalf of that contractor. So as you can see, the life cycle of moving through the types of bonds, the bid bond is where you first come in, and probably of most interest here, because that would be the first exposure you'd have to bonding here with the city. And then as you move throughout, performance and payment bonds are during the contract duration, and then the maintenance bond would be at the conclusion of the contract. All of those requirements are going to be spelled out up front in the solicitation as to what is required. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about our overall bond policy at the city. Our bonds are typically for 100% of the contract value, except for the bid bond. The bid bond is for 5%. As you can imagine, while there is an expense in procuring the goods and services for the city, and time and staff and things of that nature, it's more minimal in comparison to having a large construction project not completed. So the value of that bid bond would be for 5% of your bid amount. And that is worked out directly with your surety, how much that would cost, things of that nature. What is important here is that you use the city forms. All of the bonding requirements, like I said, will be laid out in the solicitation, as well as the city forms that should be used. Once the bid bond or your bid is submitted and an awardee is chosen, your bond would be released. If you, are unfortunately not selected, we thank you for your participation. We'll let you know that that is the case, and you can go back to your surety and have your bid bond released. B, if you are given the award, when we move on to the next bonds, then they'll release your bid bond. So that's how that would work. Our bond policy at the city does require some backup, a letter of good standing from the Maryland Insurance Administration. And then for non-Maryland entities, we do need the name and address of a Maryland registered agent and consent to jurisdiction here in Frederick County in the unlikely event of litigation. As I said, those performance and payment bonds will run the length of the project, and those will be released at completion when we move on to the maintenance bond. The maintenance bond would be for a specified period of time. Typically in the city, it's 2 years. And so that's kind of, you can see the life cycle and sort of the explanation as to why we ask for each piece along the way. Are there any questions that I can answer? Okay. Well, I believe our contact information is here in the presentation, so if you do come up with anything, please feel free to email or call, and if it comes up, when you're working on a solicitation, a response, that's certainly fine as well. Please reach out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keisha. How about another round of applause for her, folks? So I did want real quick, just following up on that, I did find 2 resources that I want to pass along. And I am going to be sending out the slide deck following the presentation today. Don't worry about that. We are also recording the whole meeting today and presentation, so you'll get a copy of the recording. Lance and our productions team back behind the scenes back there does a great job. He should have that recording to me within a couple hours. He usually does. And so we'll have all this information to you by close of business today. So so you don't have to, my point in that is you don't have to remember the link or write it down. It's all going to come to you. So the US SBA has a surety bond program that can help walk you through that. And also the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority also has a program to help you access some of these resources. What we see a lot, and the kind of the whole point of today, is that insurance and surety bonding, I didn't actually know it was called surety bonding, so that's why we did this. I learned something too. Is that the whole goal of this is to help make sure that small businesses have the same opportunities as these larger companies, right? We want to open the door for small businesses to be able to do business. And one of the number one questions we get asked all the time are barriers to entry lie in our insurance and surety bonding areas, right? And so that's often the questions we get. We don't really know how we can afford to get this level of coverage. Well, there's some resources and opportunities available and questions that can be answered to help you attain that. So that's why we wanted to do that, because all of our departments here, and we have several, are dedicated to making sure that you have those opportunities. So myself and our Office of Equity and Inclusion, we have our programs, the Small Business Reserve and Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program. If you're not familiar with that, I have our Doing Business with the City resource guide that can walk you through that. Please take one of those. Our, again, Office of Risk, Safety, and Compliance are here to walk you through any of those insurance questions. You can reach out to them at any point in time. Their door's wide open. Literally, one of the first things when I started working here and I met Andrea for the first time, that's exactly what she said. She said, anybody that has any questions at any time, please refer them to me, and I have done so a few times. And they're incredible at doing that. Our purchasing department, Keisha, you heard from, Abby and Raven are here with us as well. Their whole entire office and department is working hard to make sure that we give you guys those opportunities, and their door is always open. Raven is often the first point of contact for any of our formal solicitations, any of those RFPs, IFBs, any of those formal procurement opportunities that we have. You can reach out directly to their department if you have questions. We also have with us our Office of Economic Development, Mary and Kennedy, right there as well. So their office is dedicated to making sure that you have the opportunity to grow and expand your business here in the city of Frederick. So again, all of us work very closely together to make sure that we're providing these opportunities for you and giving you the resources you need. So if you take nothing away from today, please take away that we're here to help. If you have a question, when in doubt, reach out. And I don't mind being the first point of contact. My information is up there. You can take my business card. You can call me first, and I can point you in the direction or connect you with who you need to speak to. So that's really the main goal of today, is to help maybe answer some of those questions around insurance and surety bonding. It can be tricky, and there can be a lot that goes into it. So a couple questions in the chat. I think one was, are we going to send out the slide deck? We absolutely are going to send out the slide deck by close of business today. And then I just saw one more. How do I obtain Doing Business with the City resource guide? I will drop that right in the chat. Give me just one moment. I'm going to wrap things up, and then I will drop that in the chat for you. And I can email that to you, Trish, as soon as we finish up here, if it doesn't allow me to drop it in the chat, because it's a larger file, but I'll make sure you get a copy of that. So any questions at all? Cool. That means we did our job. So again, thank you all so much for taking the time. Next year, I will not do this in the middle of spring break. So I apologize for that. But again, thank you for taking the time to come. We really hope that you guys are all interested in pursuing some procurement opportunities with the City of Frederick, and we can't wait to help you do that. All right? Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a great day. Please take some donuts, coffee. Please help yourselves, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you all. Thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you for everyone for being here today.